So this recording is to provide some information on the Health Education and Improvement Wales post-registration foundation programme on offer for early career pharmacists in Wales for the next intake in 2023 to 2024, being delivered in collaboration with Cardiff University and the Royal Pharmaceutical Society, or the RPS. My name's Emma Llewellyn. I'm the HIW lead for the Post-Registration Foundation programme. And joining me on the recording today is Kate Francis from Cardiff University, who is the training programme director. So during the recording, we're going to provide an overview of the background and the programme model and the funding structure of the Post-Registration Foundation Pharmacist programme. We'll provide an update on the number of places available for the 2023-2024 cohort, the HIW current position, and next steps for employers to take to secure positions and the recruitment process for pharmacists to follow. We'll also provide a programme overview from Cardiff University, including the programme content, implementation plan, the roles and responsibilities, and comparison of this new programme with other postgraduate educational offerings. So to start, we wanted just to explain the reason to the background to the new postgraduate programme offering, with the major reforms being made to undergraduate and early postgraduate education and training of pharmacists across all the UK nations through the introduction of the new General Pharmaceutical Council, or GPHC, Initial Education Training Standards for Pharmacists, which were implemented in 2021. The key reforms include trainee pharmacists becoming independent prescribers at their point of registration from July 2026. This reducing the existing independent prescribing training pathway from 8 to 5 years. It also sees the implementation of the new education standards for foundation training, which was previously known as pre-registration training, and these have now started to be implemented. So HIW as an education organisation supporting pharmacy professionals for across the whole of Wales, we needed to consider how we implemented these changes with supporting those that are currently working through their pharmacist training pathway, as well as the existing pharmacist workforce. The diagram on this slide shows the plan of how the existing or current pharmacist learning outcomes will be shifted earlier into the pharmacist training pathway over the next 3 to 5 years to allow the independent learning outcomes to be shifted from the postgraduate phase to the foundation training year by August 2025. This shift in learning outcomes has been enabled to happen by the GPHC altering their regulations to remove the need for pharmacists to have 2 years post-registration experience before starting an independent prescribing qualification. The diagram on this slide shows the wider HIW Initial Education Training Standards for Pharmacists implementation plan, consisting of 7 projects which span across the 3 domains of undergraduate, foundation and career pathway, with the changes to the learning outcomes being aligned across all 3 domains, seeing an increase in exponential learning in the undergraduate phase, meeting the new standards in the multi-sector foundation training year, and supporting pharmacists in their postgraduate phase. The remainder of the recording will focus on Project 4, which looks at the post-registration foundation programme for early career pharmacists. The Post-Registration Foundation Pharmacist programme has been designed for early career pharmacists, for those 12 to 18 months qualified, and to act as a bridging programme until full implementation of the GPHC standards are made, and to support pharmacists to achieve the same skills and knowledge as those peers going through training behind them. This programme offering started this year in September 22 and will run until 2026. It is a 2-year programme which is currently non-mandated by the GPHC, however will offer an educational opportunity equitable across healthcare sectors in Wales. It will help pharmacists to increase their confidence and competence in their new roles and identify gaps and skills in their knowledge and skills relating to the standards, improve and enhance patient care, including achieving independent prescribing status. Pharmacists will have further support from experienced practitioners and from their peer groups. Pharmacists will be employed by their chosen organisation in Wales. HIW will provide funding to pharmacist employed organisation for pharmacists to have protective development time equivalent to 1 day per week. They'll also have protective development time with their practice supervisor in practice, and that will be equivalent to 1 day per month. The programme will be independently evaluated throughout this transition period, and this started this month with our first cohort. HIW have commissioned Cardiff University to deliver the Post-Registration Foundation programme to meet the learning outcomes of the Royal Pharmaceutical Society Post-Registration Foundation curriculum. And this was developed by representatives from educational bodies from across the UK. Kate from Cardiff University will provide some further information on the delivery of the programme, but just to provide a brief overview, it will involve completion of postgraduate modules, including attendance at both face-to-face and virtual study days, completion of supervised learning events in practice, undertaking peer discussions, and gathering evidence in an e-portfolio which will be put forward for a final assessment which will take place jointly between Cardiff University and the Royal Pharmaceutical Society. Successful completion of the programme and final assessment will enable Cardiff University to award the pharmacist with 80 Level 7 postgraduate credits, the Independent Prescribing Practice Certificate, and through the final joint portfolio assessment, the Royal Pharmaceutical Society Post-Registration Foundation Credential. And this is a new qualification that will be recognised across the UK and will act as an enabler for pharmacists to progress to advanced practice and provide reassurance for employer organisations in Wales that pharmacists have reached a required level of competency. So as mentioned, the programme utilises the Royal Pharmaceutical Society Post-Registration Foundation curriculum, which is available to view on the RPS website and can be used by any pharmacist in patient-facing roles, therefore supporting pharmacists' portfolio roles and career pathways. It was developed during the COVID-19 pandemic and reflects the core changes being made to pharmacists' practice and will support the transition period until the GPHC initial education and training standards for pharmacists are fully implemented. It contains a number of competencies sitting under 5 domains, including development of IP qualification, supporting clinical practice, and other skills such as leadership and management, education and training, and research. A pharmacist undertaking the programme in Wales will have support from an educational supervisor, a practice supervisor, and for that independent prescribing element, a designated prescribing practitioner, or also known as a DPP. I'd just like to acknowledge the RPS for use of the supervision model image on this slide. An educational supervisor will be an experienced practitioner or pharmacist provided by Cardiff University, and they will provide both academic and pastoral support to the pharmacists. They will monitor educational progress throughout the programme and undertake regular meetings, and will review and assess the ongoing evidence in the pharmacist's e-portfolio. A practice supervisor will be a more experienced pharmacist provided by the pharmacist's employer. This could be a pharmacist working within the same location as the learner or working remotely. They will undertake regular meetings at least once a month with the learner, and they'll be responsible for the day-to-day supervision and application of knowledge and learning into practice. They will also observe the supervised learning events. A designated prescribing practitioner will be someone who will support during the IP module. They'll supervise a period of learning in practice. They could be a person who will be in the same organisation and healthcare profession as the pharmacist, or could be someone who's different. There'll be funding provided for the DPP supervision time during the programme. They will guide and facilitate professional development of the independent prescribing capabilities in the curriculum, and they'll review evidence of the independent prescribing outcomes and will certify that that pharmacist has met the competency as an independent prescriber. So for our second cohort intake of the programme in 2023-2024, HIW are aiming to provide a total number of 80 places on the programme. We are awaiting finalisation from Welsh Government on funding confirmation, which is due imminently during December. These 80 places will be equally split between healthcare sectors, with 40 places available to the NHS managed sector, so for those employed through a health board, either in hospital or primary care, and 40 places available to the NHS contractor employed sectors, including community pharmacy and those directly employed by GP practices. There'll be a split intake between the September 2023 and then the following January 2024 intake. And in these intakes, there will also be a split between the two healthcare sectors. Having a split intake will support with the training and supervision capacity and will provide an opportunity for pharmacists to join the programme who may be registering as pharmacists at different times of the year. It will also enable pharmacists to continue to experience interprofessional learning. HIW will be providing funding for learner to have protective development time equivalent to 1 day per week and to have protective practice supervision time equivalent to 1 day per month. And there'll be a separate fund for the DPP supervision time. This funding will be paid to employer organisations in arrears, covering each month that the pharmacists are actively in learning during the programme, and this will be for up to 24 months. So the table on this slide just shows the protective development time funding for the 2023-2024 cohort per learner, and this is based on the current NHS agenda for change. The pharmacist protective development time will be funded as shown in the table at a band 6 level. The practice supervisor protective time will be funded as shown in the table at a band 8A level. And then the separate DPP supervisor grant provided as shown in the table will be given to the DPP's employer organisation within the second year of the programme. So what are the benefits of this programme to early career pharmacists? So we believe this programme will provide an opportunity for pharmacists to embed and develop their knowledge and skills in practice, meeting the new GPHC IETPs. They'll have support from experienced practitioners. They'll have opportunities of learning through vocational experiences and observations and gain effective feedback. They'll be able to work within the wider healthcare multidisciplinary team, gain confidence in their role as in a new role as a registered pharmacist, develop communities of practice with their fellow peers to support each other in everyday practice. They'll be able to support with the delivering of the evolving services being offered through pharmacy practice and drive their skills towards advanced practice, including achieving independent prescribing qualification. And they'll be able to deliver improved patient care and overall supporting the overall healthcare system. So I'm now going to pass over to Kate Francis, who'll provide a further update from Cardiff University's perspective.
Thank you, Emma. So hi, my name's Kate Francis and I work within Cardiff School of Pharmacy as the Training Programme Director for this commissioned programme from HIW. So just to initially start with an overview of the programme, it is a programme that's completed over 2 years and it's kind of a blended approach to training and development. So one side of it is from the point of view of their experiential learning in practice. And this is where having the support network of their practice supervisor will help them on a day-to-day support in practice using the RPS supervised learning events tools. Alongside that experiential learning, they'll also undertake 3 CPD modules within the university. And you can see those listed there, the optimising health outcomes, quality improvement, and also the prescribing module. So throughout the 2 years of the course, it will be a mix of the academic CPD modules alongside regular support and using the tools in practice for their own development in practice. I mentioned support a fair bit there. I think it's a really important part of that programme is the support that the students have and the regular contact and meetings with both their practice supervisor and their educational supervisor. So as Emma said, there's funding provided to ensure this is in place within their employee organisation, and they have that regular contact with the practice supervisor. We've said it should be a minimum of a monthly meeting with the practice supervisor. And what we found has worked over the last few months as we've been going with the first cohort of students is this will vary from student to student and the setup of where they are and where their practice supervisor is. So this monthly meeting, it may actually be a number of quite short meetings. It may be one longer meeting. Sometimes it might be an hour virtually, followed up with a few hours face-to-face for some observations. So that will vary in the setup and as they're moving through the programme. It should be very individualised to ensure each student gets optimum support for their own personal development. And we want it to be individualised for them and what they need to work on and want to really focus on going forward. And as the programme develops, by the end, we also then take everything, as Emma said, to the RPS assessment panel. So if we look at the sort of proposed training programme that we have currently, this is what we set it when we first set up the programme really prior to running with it. And generally it's what we're going with our first cohort this year. You can see as a guide on here, the 3 CPD modules. So you've got the green, the orange and the blue there showing those 3 modules that we mentioned. So the optimising health outcomes in the first term, moving on to the quality improvement project in the second term, and then that prescribing, which makes most of the second year of the project of the programme. In the second row on there, where you can see the monthly meetings, this is kind of as a guide of how we're going to use the monthly meetings with the educational supervisors from the university. So every student will have a dedicated educational supervisor, and each educational supervisor will have a group of students they're responsible for, and they will meet those students on a monthly basis. And there's 3 types of monthly meetings that we're using with the students, and these kind of go on a cyclic basis so that they know every 3 months they'll have each type of meeting. So one of them is a one-to-one meeting. So it's a really good opportunity for the educational supervisor to get to know the students, the learners, and get a feel for them, their personal development, and also to understand how things are going in practice and what support may be needed. A second meeting they have includes the practice supervisor as well. So again, this helps for the educational supervisor and the practice supervisor to build their relationship up. The educational supervisor will be that first point of contact for both the learners and the practice supervisors. So the more that relationship can build, the more we're able to provide support to the students and their supervisors in practice. So those every 3 months, there'll be that tripartite meeting where the practice supervisor, the student and the educational supervisor meet. And then the third meetings that we're doing, we're kind of calling them like a community of practice. And it will be with a group of around 5 students and their educational supervisor. And they'll meet every 3 months for a range of different focuses and use of those meetings. It's a great opportunity, as Emma said earlier, about that peer support and networking that we want to get from the programme, is we'll try and keep them in those same groups of 5 students every 3 months so that they've got the opportunity to get to know each other and help each other, support each other, and build up that nice little peer network of support that hopefully will take them through the programme, but also into their later career. You'll always remember those people you first worked with. So hopefully that will give them a nice little support network for themselves. These communities of practice will also help us to develop some of the other skills which go alongside the RPS curriculum. There's additional learning events from the RPS around things like doing a case presentation and presenting a journal entry, journal clubs, and doing a bit of teaching of peers. So we can use these communities of practice as a way for the students to develop these skills, but hopefully in a very safe environment, so they can develop those presentation skills, the teaching skills, presenting information to their peers within that nice safe environment, to give them the confidence to take those things into their future career at the end of the programme. So those monthly meetings are all on there, and as I said, we can use them as we need them for different events or as a nice little group network. And if a lot of them have got things they want to discuss, we can use it as a nice development opportunity of, oh, lots of you are, how's it going with Strep A? Let's talk about that because that's very relevant at the moment. So we can use them as we wish to kind of support their personal development and their professional development. So that's kind of an overview of the training programme. We'll go into a few bits of detail shortly, but if we look then alongside the RPS curriculum, we've mapped the whole programme to the outcomes, so you can see them all numbered there. You're very welcome to go away and look at all those numbers, but that was just our way of overseeing the whole programme and how it fits in to the RPS credentialing, sort of the curriculum side of things. The independent prescribing outcomes will all be matched by the RPS at the time of credentialing, and it will be the other non-IP outcomes that we'll be looking at by the end of the programme. So as we move through the programme and looking at month by month how it will run, so for the first year, you'll have the first Optimising Health Outcomes module. So this is around a sort of foundation of therapeutics. So it's the fundamentals of the therapeutic knowledge that will support them in all sectors and in all specialities. It's taught through online study days from experts in the area, and the focus of the teaching is very much about the everyday scenarios and the sort of everyday application of the knowledge. So it's not about training them to be very specialists in an area, but it's more introducing the concepts. And we cover some of the areas such as thromboembolic disease, and we've kind of focused that kind of teaching of a red flagging at the front door, GP practice community side, but also the choice of treatment and then the counselling and the way you take it forward. So we kind of look at all sectors and the journey of the patient in all areas to support them wherever they are. We also cover antimicrobial stewardship, paediatrics and palliative care, to name just a few of the sort of therapeutics areas we look at. As I said, that's through online teaching, and we follow that up during the module with an assessment in the form of patient management problems. And these are like a question and answer coursework, just to help them to contextualise the learning and apply it to patient scenarios of how would you do this in practice. So that goes alongside, that module runs through the first term, and through all of those study days, when there's any group work and discussions of cases within the study days, we ensure that the groups, as best as possible, are mixed in sector and location to allow them to mix amongst themselves and kind of learn from each other in the different sectors. I think it really helps to support them to know what people are doing in all the different parts of the patient journey. So we try and mix them up as best as possible to help that development and appreciation of the different sectors. On completion of that module, we then have the kind of second term really of the programme where they start looking at their quality improvement project. So this module is taught alongside the Improvement Cymru resources, and as long as they complete the module and do 2 PDSA cycles within their project, then it is mapped across to hopefully be able to gain the Improvement Cymru award, which is the equivalent of the old silver QI award that it used to be. We work quite closely with HEIW with that and support from their quiz team to ensure everyone understands the concepts and we can move it forward in all sectors in practice. So those are the two academic modules during the first year, roughly a term each for those two. And then obviously running in the background, we've got the RPS supervised learning event tools helping to build up their portfolio of evidence and for them to evidence to us that they're developing during the year and they're improving their skills and their application of knowledge in practice. At 9 months, I will review each student with their educational supervisor to look at their portfolio up to that point. So the educational supervisor will have been having the monthly meetings, will have been meeting with the practice supervisor, and that will all feed in along with a reflective account that will come from the student themselves. At 9 months, we make the decision then of whether they're in a position to move on to the independent prescribing element of the programme. It may be at that point of yes, they're ready, or we need a couple of bits more evidence, but then it should be okay, or we need to look at delaying the independent prescribing. And each one of those will be on an individual basis that we will do at that 9-month point. Hopefully, with the regular contact throughout the first year, it will be apparent before the 9-month review if there is more support needed, and we can keep that going on an ongoing thing through the year. Because they're in such regular contact, I wouldn't expect big surprises at 9 months, and hopefully we'll have had that kind of communication between practice and ourselves throughout the year. Then looking into year 2, and this is where the prescribing module comes in. So as I said, at 9 months we decide yes or no, and then prescribing starts in the second year. This is the same CPD prescribing module that has been running in Cardiff University for a number of years, and it's the one a lot of people will have done as a CPD module, standalone or part of the diploma over the last few years. And it's the same setup as with that, and the students at the end will get their certificate in independent prescribing, enabling them to annotate with the GPHC as an independent prescriber. So that will make up the bulk of the second year. Also, we'll still be ongoing with those monthly meetings and helping to build and support their general development as well, and that RPS portfolio ready for the credentialing. At some point near the end of the second year will be the RPS joint assessment panel. And it is a joint assessment panel, so it will be a member of the university, one of the educational supervisors will be on the panel, but not the student's own one. As this is a new credentialing process, we're still awaiting the finer details of how those will work, but they will be at some point coming up to the end of the second year. And prior to going to that credentialing, we will as a team review all of the students and ensure the support's in place for them to complete all the activities that they need to. So I've kind of touched on a few of these bits going forward, but with the experiential learning, it's most important is that they are working in practice and that they have the support from the practice supervisor. And this support from the practice supervisor, some of it may be remote. So the students will have different portfolio activities that we expect them to do. Some of them can be discussed remotely, so it may be that they're doing some patient profiles or talking through their decision making of different cases. Those sorts of ones could be in a remote discussion. But there are other things where it is important the practice supervisor sees the students in practice, and maybe to observe their consultation skills or their approach to pharmaceutical care, maybe in a DMR or a common ailments consultation, or during a drug history taking or a counselling going home from the hospital. And it is important that some of them are supervised in practice so that we can kind of give that rounded support to the students of not just their knowledge, but also their application to it in practice and their day-to-day management of their role and how they interact with other health professionals in different scenarios. So that experiential learning will be very much about the pharmacist and their time with their practice supervisor, which then feeds back into their portfolio and what we see then when we're looking at their portfolio. The assessments that come, some of it as a result of the experiential learning, and some of them come as a result of the study days. So you can see here a breakdown of the different elements of assessments. The e-portfolio assessments will be very much about things they're doing in practice that they discuss and feedback with their practice supervisor prior to submitting it to us for us to see as an overview. Whereas other elements of the assessment, like the patient management problems and the therapeutic framework and things within the university, within the IP module, are all things that we in the university assess against a mark scheme to give a final mark. So there's varying different assessments throughout it, some of them being observations in practice and some of them being more formal assessments for the university. And you can see how we've mapped them to the different elements of the Miller's Triangle of meeting kind of different skills and competencies as they go through. So with the RPS assessment panel, I kind of mentioned this briefly earlier. It will have one of our educational supervisors on the panel. Again, the details of this are still being worked through as it is the first couple of years of this credentialing, but we are working closely with the RPS so that we can support the students through it and ensure we all know where we are by the end of the second year when presenting to the RPS. With these regular reviews, it gives us the chance to kind of keep on top of it, really. The teaching with generally, we base everything that we're using from the university within Microsoft Teams. The last few years have given us a chance to really get to know the platform, and it's a useful environment for us to keep everything together for the students. So the study days are all run through Teams, but we also use it as a way of sharing information with the students. So all their learning is within Teams. Any e-learning we need them to do, any preparation for study days, we put it within that team so it's all together and in one place for them. It also allows us a different option for communication. So the whole cohort will be in one team for the duration of the programme, and hopefully as they get to know each other and spend more time in little groups together, they can use it as a way of communicating with each other. So as a team, we monitor any chat on it in between study days, but we have noticed already that sometimes they can start answering their own questions and a student may put something up and someone else within the group will answer it. So it's a nice way of helping them to communicate with each other and with us to be able to support them as well. They also have access to the library and different things which we link from the team, and we do different teams for the supervisors as well as the students. And linking from Teams into the e-portfolio, this is where they'll be documenting all of their supervised learning events, any activities that we may add during the programme. The e-portfolio that we're using is with 14 Fish, and it's been developed for us, so it's very bespoke in the way it's been built. This is our first term using it. We're still tweaking it a little bit, but it should hold everything together for us. The platform matches across to the RPS, and for every evidence they do on 14 Fish, they can cross-reference it to their RPS curriculum, so we can look at that and we can keep an eye on graphs to see their progression through the different competencies and link back and forth to their evidences to see what they've got for each one. So it should all link nicely to the RPS and allow us to review it for going to the credentialing at the end. From a Welsh language point of view, as a university, we feel we have a strong commitment to support your development in both Welsh or English. Within our team of educational supervisors, we do have Welsh-speaking educational supervisors within the team in the university, and we'd be able to support and offer Welsh-speaking tutors for the duration of the programme. By having them within our team, it means that we can have those monthly meetings with the practice supervisor and things through the medium of Welsh if that was requested. And I think especially in some areas within Wales where Welsh is a much stronger language, it helps the student develop in both languages when their day-to-day practice may always be in Welsh. It's nice that we're able to support that development through both options, depending on the preference of the student and the practice supervisor. So then just looking at the team within the university, obviously you have myself, we've been talking through this now, overseeing the whole programme. I'm kind of that first point of contact with Emma and Kath in HEIW and ensuring that the programme is meeting everything that we need to do from their point of view. And then I manage the team of educational supervisors. As a team, we ensure the practice supervisors and everyone involved in the programme are trained appropriately and are happy, and provide any support for them as the programme develops. And I have those reviews of all the students at month 9 and again then at the end before they submit for their credentialing. The educational supervisors will be the more day-to-day contact for the students and for the practice supervisors. So the pharmacists will be allocated their own educational supervisor who will be with them for the duration of the programme. They're there as the pastoral support within the university and also that link with practice and giving them the support to know everything is working as we would expect it to be. They'll be meeting every month. So although this will be remote, it will allow them to develop that rapport from those regular meetings, both on their own and with other students and with their practice supervisor. They again will be involved at that 9-month review and again at the end. Practice supervisors, so as Emma said earlier, these will be provided by the host organisation, and they do have some financial support to release them for a day a month to enable them to provide the support to the students in practice. These practice supervisors are there for that experiential side of things. They're there in practice to see what they're doing and really develop these early years pharmacists in those day-to-day skills. It's not just about the knowledge, it's about the skills and how they're doing in practice. Some of the supervision can be remote, but it is important they are also present and observing them from time to time. And they'll always have that regular contact with the educational supervisor also. We're then that final member of the support team. The nice diagram that Emma shared with us earlier is the DPP, so the designated prescribing practitioner. And this is the same as it always has been for the prescribing module, that they meet the competencies required to be a DPP, and they have to be identified prior to starting the module. So once we have that 9-month review to assess whether they're okay, the student can go onto the IP or not, the student then needs to apply for the independent prescribing module, and as part of that they need to have an appreciation of where their scope of practice will be and who their DPP will be, because they do need to be an important part of the process prior to the module even starting. That relationship needs to be built up, and it's a really important part of the whole module. They'll be responsible for those 90 hours of learning and the overall sign off for those prescribing competencies. Yes, so meetings go in, how it kind of works. We sort of went through this earlier, really, that the pharmacists will get their meetings with their educational supervisor as a tripartite or as a community. And what we do after each of these meetings is we just fill a bit of paperwork in, just so that we are keeping a track really of how the meetings are going and an opportunity to raise and follow up any concerns. And we just document whether we've got any concerns or whether there's little things that we want to work on, or at this point, whether we need to put a more intensive action plan in place. And this is where I was saying that hopefully by the 9-month review, there'll be no surprises because we're having these regular monthly contacts. So it kind of flags things earlier on, hopefully, and we can put things in place before they become too much need for intensive work. But we work with that on a monthly basis so that we can keep on top of their development and their support. It's just showing how they all kind of work together. We have the meetings, we've got the training, we've got the use of Teams as well. So there's lots of different communications and ways that everything works together in the ready for the student's own personal development. And how does it work then? So the application process. So Emma did mention this earlier and will be more involved in that early expressions of interest and allocation of places is very much with Emma and with HEIW. And once we're given the list of who's been allocated the places, we are then able to contact them with the information for applying for the modules. So the programme itself runs kind of independent to the university side of things, but each of the modules are CPT modules that need to be applied for within the university. So for those coming onto a September cohort, we need to start the application process by July to make sure we can get it all through in time. And for the January cohort, we'd aim for around an October time for application. With both those dates, we have a little bit of flexibility, so please keep in touch with us if there's issues or needing to clarify supervisors and different things like that. But that's kind of the target we go for the year one modules for application onto the programme. And as you can see, what we do with that is we follow up post GPHC results so that we can formally offer the places and get them fully enrolled. But if we start thinking from July, then we know where we are for the September cohort. Looking back on how these modules have run in the past, so PhD 751 and 753, these are the year one modules, and they've been modules as part of the diploma for a number of years. And over the last few years, we've had students in all sectors doing them. Some of them as just standalone modules to do in one module 1 year and another the next, in primary care, in community, and in split placements. So we've managed to gather a range of experience for us as a university and how they work, and also with feedback from the students to see what works and what doesn't. So it's kind of a useful slide to put up to show where people have felt it's benefited them. And some of the things I like is some of those things around collaborative work and how they've gained from other students and from their tutors, and the benefit to them of seeing all the different sectors and how they work together. I really like the last one there. It was from a community pharmacist, and it really just helped him to see that community pharmacists are not that different from their hospital colleagues. And it's just really reassuring to see all the different sectors coming together, learning from each other and appreciating all of their different skills and where they all fit into the patient journey. And that's what we kind of want to keep through the programme, is keeping them mixing up so they can learn from each other and develop each other into optimising all of the skills that they've got. So as a comparison now with the programme, the diploma, this is a very brief slide, but just to try and put it into context from the university module point of view. The programme that we're talking about today covers those three modules. You see the foundations module, the quality improvement module, and the prescribing module. In comparison to the diploma, where we have the three core modules, which are the same first two as the new programme, and then a second therapeutics module, PhD 752, which provides further therapeutic teaching. So those are the core of the diploma, and then an additional 60 credits, which are all the optional modules that students add on to make up their full diploma. And within these optional ones is about applying those extra therapeutic teaching, as well as this is where they can add in the prescribing if they want to as part of the diploma. So the modules that exist on this new programme are all ones that are part of the diploma, but the diploma does have extra therapeutics teaching, which won't come into the new programme. Going forward, this is where the additional options are available to them. So at the end of the programme, they get the RPS credentialing and they get 80 level 7 university credits. So this is 80 credits towards the total for a diploma is 120. So there is the option with additional funding that those 80 credits could be used towards a diploma, and where the students can be funded to do the additional 40 credits to kind of expand maybe their scope of practice, or if there's areas that they want to have a bit of additional learning in. The whole pool of university modules will be available to them, of the kind of diploma modules will be available to them, and depending on what they want to do with that, it is an option. It may be about advanced practice, sort of management skills sides of things, or it may be about the therapeutic scope of practice. And back over to Emma now to look in more detail around the recruitment for how it goes.
Thanks, Kate. So yeah, just to finish up this recording, with just to give you a bit of an update from HIW on the recruitment process for the next cohort intake. So as I mentioned earlier, the final confirmation of funding and numbers for the 2023-2024 intake is due to come from Welsh Government imminently during December, so we are still awaiting that. HIW this year will be allocating places through employer organisations, both for the September 2023 and the January 2024 intake. We have already been working with the NHS managed sector, who have confirmed through email their intended numbers to recruit for each individual health board. And we are now working with the NHS employed contractors and are asking employer organisations to complete an online expressions of interest form for intention to recruit. This is going to be available open until January the 13th, and it's available through community pharmacy and GP practices networks. HIW then will allocate places both to the NHS managed sector and the contractor employed organisations by the latest of the beginning of February. From there, pharmacists will need to work with their employer organisations in Wales to secure employment to start once they've qualified, and we will support them with their application processes and enrolment processes onto the programme modules with Cardiff University. We are encouraging the priority of recruitment for those that are qualifying in July 2023. However, we will be working on a case-by-case basis to work with those pharmacists who are 12 to 18 months qualified, who may have not been on any formalised educational programme, who wish to join this new post-registration foundation programme. So just some next steps for you to consider following listening to this recording. We'd really encourage you to access the HIW Pharmacy website to access our resources to support newly registered pharmacists, and that contains some further information regarding the programme. And these resources can be accessed through the link on the screen, and they're currently being updated with information regarding our next cohort intake. Just encourage both employer organisations and trainee pharmacists to attend the HIW Foundation Pharmacy Career Showcase event. That's happening on the evening of the 12th of January. This is just a really good opportunity to hear from employer organisations from across Wales, to see the job opportunities that will be available for early career pharmacists for next year. We'll also be offering some drop-in lunchtime and evening question and answer sessions, again for both trainee pharmacists and employer organisations to come along to. Dates are to be confirmed for early January, and these will be cascaded through employer organisation networks, trainee pharmacist training sites, and also on our social media platforms as well. We will be supporting employer organisations with the advertising of jobs for the early career pharmacists with the programme attached. And we're going to be encouraging trainee pharmacists to engage and follow any future employer organisation application processes, and to ask questions specifically about your educational opportunities, opportunities which will be available during those application processes and interviews that you attend. Encourage trainee pharmacists to look for job offerings of the programme. They'll be available through NHS Jobs Wales, and we'll also set up a HIW career page from the end of January, where we'll be supporting advertising and the job opportunities which will be available. So if you do have any questions following listening to our recording today, please feel free to email the HIW Post-Registration Foundation Pharmacist generic email box, or the Cardiff School of Pharmacy and Pharmaceutical Sciences email, and both email addresses are available there on the screen. So thank you very much for taking the time to listen to the recording today, and we look forward to working with you all closely in the future. Thanks again.
Bye-bye.